All right, part two of our probability section, some of the basics and some formulas. So the basics of probability, we discussed just the very basics. I'll give you some terms. We'll discuss something called the independence rule and conditional probability. Those are probably the toughest concepts, but the ones that are most useful for us. So terms. You often read in probability literature about an event. And that's defined as the outcome of a trial. That's just whatever happened. Did this happen? If I flip a coin, that's one trial. The outcome of the event is either heads or tails. Simply what happens. Another term we see is exhaustive. Whoops. A set of events that represents all possible outcomes. So we have a coin, you flip it, it's either heads or tails. That's all of the possible outcomes. That's the only two things that can happen. So that would be an exhaustive set of events. Another term that we'll see is mutually exclusive. That means that if one thing happens, another thing can't happen. Occurrence of one event precludes the occurrence of the other event. If we flipped it and it came out heads, it wouldn't have been tails. So they are mutually exclusive outcomes. They can't both happen at the same time. If you're drawing, if you're talking about a deck of cards, drawing a 2 or drawing a heart, those aren't mutually exclusive because you could get the 2 of hearts. They can happen at the same time. All right, independent, here's a really important one. Events are independent when the occurrence of one has no impact on the probability of another. And we'll see some ways that we can test whether events are independent of each other. For example, if I flip a coin twice, the outcome of the first coin flip has nothing to do with the outcome of the second coin flip. Those are independent events. Drawing a 2 of hearts from the deck, does that impact the chances of drawing a 3 of hearts? Well, actually it does if we're not replacing the card in the deck. You have a 1 in 52 chance of drawing a 2 of heart, but if you haven't replaced the card in the deck, there's a 1 in 51 chance of drawing the 3 of hearts. So those events would not be independent. If we put the card back in the deck, then they would be independent. All right, a couple of formulas. Basic probability, noted as probability of A. Events favoring A over the total number of things that can happen. That seems complicated, but it really breaks down rather simply in a second. Conditional probability, P given A. P with that line, I'm sorry, P A given B, I should have said. That line there indicates that something is given. What does that mean? Well, it means given that B has happened, given that we know B happened, how likely is it that A happened? This is probably one of the harder concepts in this class, but it relates to the idea of independence, and we'll do a few examples of that. The independence rule states that 2 events are independent, that is, they don't influence each other, when the probability of A is equal to the probability of A given that B has already happened. So those are the 3 types of probabilities and the 3 types of formulas we're going to deal with. The formulas themselves and the calculations aren't particularly challenging. It's just understanding what to put into the calculations, which was what we'll go over.